All right, let's stay with this particular story and speak to Brand South Africa's CEO, Neville Matjie. Neville, good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. Perhaps we start with just the sampling, right, and how it was done.
Good evening and thank you for welcoming me this evening. Yeah, so we used a variety of sampling methods. For our global reputation study, we used, of course, our qualitative research where, we looked at 17 markets identified by us as Brand South Africa. Together with Bloom Consulting, look at our peers, looking at our competitors, as well as looking at the leading markets that we, of course, specifically the ones that are our major trading partners. And out of that, we surveyed over 10,000 respondents in those different markets who were able to then respond in terms of how they view South Africa. So the global reputation study is specifically looking at how the world views us. And then, of course, our domestic survey, we did a combination of both qualitative and quantitative research. We went on the ground on all 9 provinces. We sampled over 4,000 respondents, and those respondents really specifically focused on how they were viewing South Africa. So the different age groups, race groups, income levels, both in urban and rural areas. So this enables us as Brand South Africa to understand how South Africans perceive our country, the levels of pride, the trust, optimism, and of course, social cohesion.
Now, when we talk about reputation, for example, as you've mentioned, South Africa's international reputation increasing once again. And I wonder what does this tell us, but also what would be the critical role played then by reputation when it comes to economic growth?
You know, as we say, your reputation precedes you. So for us, reputation is a very important pillar for the work that we do as Brand South Africa. And remember, perceptions are also important. And that is why we measure the perceptions as Brand South Africa. Why that's critical, obviously, we are able to identify which markets we need to target to ensure that we improve the image and the reputation of the country. For us, we specifically looked at improvements that demonstrate our global audiences, distinguishing them between, of course, the daily challenges that are reported in the news and in the South African broader, and looking also at the broader strengths of the country. What it also confirms is that sustained reforms, that the bulk that you have mentioned earlier in your preamble, improves investor confidence. And when you have improved investor confidence, we've got more businesses that are able to come into South Africa and invest in South Africa. The other pillar, specifically looking at exports, very important. It means that South African products can go into different markets. And there is a big uptake in terms of South African products in those markets. What was also quite interesting is how sports, arts, culture is also a very important pillar in terms of how South Africa is viewed in different markets. So when South Africa does well in the sporting field or in the arts, we are actually seen very positively by the different markets. So those are some of the critical pillars that we've looked at as Brand South Africa that have really boosted our image in terms of the study. Of course, safety and security is a big challenge for us. And if there was an improvement in terms of safety and security, we'd see a huge uptake in terms of course, visitor numbers coming to South Africa. We have what is called a love mark, and the lovers, which are countries that actually love South Africa. Interestingly enough, Africa is at the top, as well as the Middle East, despite, of course, what we've been witnessing in the last few months. And then, of course, the US, Europe, and Asia are the ones that would love to love us even more. But when you look in tourism numbers, the bulk of the tourists come from, of course, the USA, the UK, Germany. And imagine if we just improved safety and security, those numbers would treble effectively and really show to or for them to come and have great experiences in South Africa.
And especially because when one looks at, just the survey, you get a sense of visitors who come in skeptical, but when they leave, they do not even want to leave our country, and they become our biggest advocates just about how beautiful this country is. But as you mentioned the events of the past, just the recent past, we've seen, of course, the issues of migration. And I wonder if that has been an issue at all, and how does it affect the country's reputation?
So our survey was completed end of last year, and of course we did reviews, etc., which we then completed in May this year. So factors of what is currently happening now in South Africa, you'll only realize in the new financial year. Mm-hmm. But what has come out within our survey has not demonstrated any negativity to South Africa, particularly in the last few years. As I've indicated, when you're looking at the visitors to South Africa and the countries that prefer to come to South Africa, the bulk come from the African continent. Those are, of course, legal visitors coming into the country, including those from the Middle East that come and visit South Africa. And then because really South Africa remains a pillar of their visitor experience. You are quite correct. After they visit South Africa, their experience is such that they want to come back, and they encourage others to come and visit South Africa. When you look at our visitor numbers and our score in terms of visitors to South Africa is actually one of the highest scoring. We're sitting at 3.7, which demonstrates that our culture, our hospitality, our attractions, our value propositions for tourists is also such meaningful that they actually want to come into South Africa. There was a huge gap that we picked up in terms of those that haven't visited South Africa and are skeptical about visiting South Africa. And that thread, of course, runs across on the issue on safety and security. But once they visited South Africa, the bug bites, and then they want to come back and come back.
Neville, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. And I just wish I could end it off on a good news front as far as Banyana is concerned. So Ivory Coast seems to be leading still. So yeah, definitely. We're praying.
No, we're praying for them. The girls are going to do well. They're going to do well for us. They're resilient. And even if they don't do well, but I know they'll do well. They're going to win this game.
Send the energy. Send all of it. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Appreciate your time. Brand South Africa CEO there, Neville Matjie.